titled, "The Texas Abortion Hypocrites Don't Care About Post-Birth Children." You know, that Governor Abbott and the Republicans in Texas will tell you that they're very, 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 very concerned about children, particularly before they're born, even when they're the size of a grain of rice and have a tail indistinguishable from a tadpole at around 6 weeks of gestation. But when children are post-birth, when they're old enough that the state of Texas might have to use some of those tax dollars from their rich people to care for those kids when their own birth parents can't or won't, suddenly Texas Republicans have amnesia about all this concern for children. Yesterday, U.S. District Judge Janice Jack had scheduled a 2-day hearing where the lawyers for the children in foster care, or for many of the children in foster care in Texas, have been just outraged, just very, very concerned about what's going on in Texas. And I'll lay that out in just a second. She had this 2-day hearing scheduled, and 3 hours into it, she just cut it off and said, "That's it, enough." She said, "I don't know if anything would be served by continuing the hearing." And then she, you know, she doesn't want to give the state any more time to study this. I mean, already the state of Texas has studied this situation for decades, and Greg Abbott apparently wants to have another study. While children are sleeping on office floors, they're crashing in flea bag motels, they're failing to get therapy or medications that they need, they're being sexually and physically abused. In this hearing, for example, they presented evidence about a 7-year-old who was handcuffed by a security guard, other kids who tried to commit suicide by slashing their wrists, hanging themselves, and drinking cleaning fluids. This past year in Texas, there were over 630 confirmed, substantiated allegations of abuse, neglect, or exploitation within the system. 14,227 violations by the state. And these are the things they caught. Violations of what they referred to as minimum standards of care. Over the past 6 years, this same judge, Judge Jack, has repeatedly ruled that Texas is violating its own children's constitutional right to be free from unreasonable risk of harm, is the phrase that they use. And the state basically has refused to do anything about it. They don't want to raise taxes on their morbidly rich people. And she's found them in contempt of court twice. This is what Judge Jack said. She said, "Governors in the past, as well as this governor, and legislators in the past, have done study after study after study and have come up with the same issues, the same exact issues." Judge Jack added, "I just want these children to be safe." I mean, this is particularly troubling given the explosion of unwanted kids who are going to start being born in about 9 months in Texas. You're going to see thousands more children a year whose parents are unable to take care of them, too young or immature to take care of them, not competent to take care of them, or in some cases, frankly, just don't give a damn, didn't want the kids in the first place, and don't want to take care of them. And sadly, having worked in that industry back years ago, I can tell you that that's a very real part of this problem. And, you know, wealthy white women are going to have no problem in Texas getting an abortion. They'll just hop on an airplane and fly to another state. But poorer women in Texas who don't have the resources, or women in Texas who don't have the resources and very definitely don't want to have children, they're going to be the ones who are going to end up having these children, and these children are going to end up in the system. And so Texas not only is exaggerating or amplifying or expanding the number of children that they're going to have to be dealing with. Of course, it's not going to be Greg Abbott's problem. These kids are going to pop up in the system in 2, 3, 5, 10 years, right? It's going to be long after Greg Abbott has run for president and, you know, whatever, you know, and retired. But this is just a crime, what's going on in Texas. The fact that the state, on the one hand, is forcing low-income women to have children, and you know, I'm telling you, you just look at the statistics in the foster care system. So many of these kids are coming out of low-income homes who just don't have the resources to care for them, or in some cases just didn't want to have them in the first place, but you know, didn't have the resources to get an abortion, or didn't even know about it. In some cases, you get, you know, 15-year-olds, and in Texas, sex education is forbidden to talk about birth control or abortion. They don't even know. In many cases, these kids don't even these young women who are having these children, or your children who are having children, essentially, don't even know what's available to them. They end up having these babies, and then they end up in the system. And this is all so that Greg Abbott can get the votes of white evangelicals. They're the ones who have been pushing the abortion issue mostly. I realize the Catholic Church has been big on it, but this is just so hypocritical.